Welcome back to the Mind Your Hero podcast. But wait, we've rebranded. And so I've been waiting to do this Dumbledore moment for the longest time. The change of decoration is in order. Welcome officially to the Manifestation Diaries podcast, hosted by yours truly, Kylie-Anne, and also now known as that Manifestation Mama. You are probably wondering what has been the catalyst to the rebrand, to me stripping back the layers, to closing Mind You Hero, all of the things that have happened in my life over the last little while. And in this episode, I am here to talk about it all. I'm going to be spilling the tea on everything, as well as if you really listen to this podcast episode, you are going to discover the deeper parts of manifestation that nobody talks about. And I cannot wait to take you on the journey, because I know from speaking with so many of you in my DMs or in person or just in general conversations over the last little while, not only have I felt these identity changes, these ego deaths, these dark nights of the souls, you have too. And if you have found yourself listening to this podcast episode, I can guarantee you that you are going to resonate with parts of my story in your own way, but also take away real practical tools that you can really implement in your day-to-day life to navigate challenges, to call in the next level of your life, and to really manifest everything that you desire. We are foregoing the era where we just manifest things in isolation. So we're not just going to manifest a car, a home, a whatever it is. I want you to manifest the whole damn life, it all. The butterflies in your tummy when you wake up next to your partner that just brings you so much joy and happiness, and the family, the beautiful home, the cars, whatever it is. But it's this feeling of, wow, can somebody please just pinch me, because I did not know that my life could be this great. So welcome back to our brand new podcast, Manifestation Diaries. I cannot wait to start rolling out everything I have planned for this podcast. I've been in deep contemplation of what this is going to look and feel like, but essentially, it is going to be the podcast that you can come to decode the mysteries of your soul, to unlock the secrets of manifestation, and call in everything that you desire because you know how to. And we are going to go deep into the diaries of my own journey, guest journeys, and the journey of what it means to crack your soul codes in alignment with human design and the gene keys and ancient manifestation wisdom, neuroscience, all of the things that I have been learning about, implementing, practicing over the last couple of years. So we have your cup of cacao, your cup of tea, a coffee, whatever it is. Let's dive into where I've been for the last few months, years, and really take a deep dive on all things behind the scenes. So I want to start by saying that this journey of the rebranding actually began 3 years ago. And I'm a person that you may or may not know. So perhaps you've been following my journey for the longest time. Maybe you're an OG person that has been a part of the Mind Your Hero family since its inception. And if that is you, hi, welcome back. Thank you for being here, and thank you for continuing your journey. But perhaps you're new here and you don't really know that much about me. And so if you're new here, welcome to this corner of the internet where you're really going to start to get to know me a lot more in depth, and feel like we're going to be having a chat where you're in my living room right now and we get to have a conversation on all the things that I love to talk about. So welcome to my world. Now, for those that may not know me, or for those that do know me, I am somebody that loves symbols, signs, and numbers. Numbers speak to me every single day. And so I've had on my heart for the longest time to re-record this introduction episode and really just pour my heart and soul into this podcast. I know that how I am designed in accordance to my mechanics through human design, my voice is my frequency. And when people hear my voice, the words that I speak can be really felt. And so I know that podcasting is a big part of me building a personal brand. So I've been wanting to do this podcast for the longest time. And I've been sitting and I've been planning and I've been plotting and all of these things. But something came to me this past weekend, and it's like, you need to release this podcast on the 9th of the 9th, 2025. Now, I'm recording it on this day, the 9th of the 9th, 2025. And if you add 2025 up, you get another 9. And so it is a 999 episode. And nines are really impactful because it means that it's the end of a journey. And whenever there's a close, there is an opening to something new. And I just feel like with everything that's been going on astrologically with eclipse season and all sorts of different things happening in the last 2 weeks, this was the perfect time. And me doing it today also meant that I had to get over perfectionism. It meant that I had to really just go for it and actually practice what I preach. And so it just feels like there has never been a better time to record this podcast than right now in this moment. And I'm releasing it today. I am taking messy, imperfect action. And again, as a 3-5 profile line, this is exactly me following my design. Let's go back to 4 years ago. I cannot believe it has been 4 years. But 4 years ago, October 2021 was the month that I quantum leaped and collapsed timelines in an extraordinary way. It was the month where on the 14th of October, we finally had our wedding, which was incredible. We then went on honeymoon 2 days after our wedding. We then got back from our honeymoon, and somewhere on honeymoon, we actually booked our tickets to immigrate to Ireland. We got back from honeymoon, and 2 days later, we immigrated. And we landed in Ireland at the end of October to begin our new life as Mr. and Mrs. and take on this big adventure of living in a country that we had never visited before. And all of my manifestations had come true in that month. And I've had 2 really pivotal moments in my life where that has happened, where I've come to a place where everything has manifested. And then I had an identity crisis of, but what next? Now, a lot of people will say, but can't you just be grateful for everything that you've got? And yes, you can be grateful. And also realize that chemically inside your brain, inside the cells of your body, you are wired, your DNA is wired to continually seek out growth and evolution. It is what is basically the survival mechanics of our species. And these are programmings and codes that I've learned deeply through studying the gene keys. And it really is so fascinating on how we are here to evolve and grow as a human species. And so every time you reach a point where you get everything you desire, there's another level to be attained. And this is why a lot of people have midlife crises, is because they get to where they always thought that they would be. And then they're like, but what next? And if you don't know what next, things are going to show you, well, the universe is going to really crack you open to really help you find what is next. And so we began our journey in Ireland. We got our first apartment rental and moved in on the 11th of the 11th, 11/11, 2021, which blew my mind, still blows my mind to this day. And that was November. And by January, I fell pregnant, which again was a huge manifestation and everything I had been working up to. And it was a time where I was learning to live in a new country. I was learning to navigate so much within myself. And that was the start of me being cracked open. I don't even know how to begin structuring this podcast. And every time I've written notes for it, I just feel like this is something that needs to come from my heart. But essentially, me becoming a mom was the biggest identity ego death I've ever been through. Becoming a mom shattered who I was and everything that I'd ever thought I could be in beautiful, raw, and filtered ways. And it opened me up to understanding manifestation in ways that I've never actually considered before. Something that was really interesting for me during pregnancy is that I didn't have a tough pregnancy in how some people have tough pregnancies. I didn't have morning sickness. I had a relatively good pregnancy both times, but I did have really dark thoughts. And that was part of my identity crumbling. And part of that identity crumbling was really learning how to hold things together as opposed to isolation. I did not know how I was going to be a mom and run a business, how I was going to be a mom and a wife, how I was going to be a mom and a friend. And so the reason why my identity started to crumble was because I was already starting to navigate all of these concepts. Now, I know that because I had quite a turbulent inner world, and there were just a lot of things that were also starting to happen where I was taking my foot off the pedal in business because I didn't know what to expect becoming a mom. And I knew that I'd cultivated a lifestyle where I had built up a successful company in order for me to go into maternity, being able to take the time off that I required to really be with my baby. And so I'd started taking my foot off the pedal in business from the moment I fell pregnant. And it was also just really interesting because I was living in Dublin, still earning mostly in South African rands, and the cost of living is vastly different in Dublin. And one of the biggest ego deaths and identity deaths I started to have was around abundance. And it was so interesting. Now, something that I know to the core of my being is that I'm here and I'm meant to be a millionaire in this lifetime. And this is the thing about manifestation. Manifestation and the universe will always prepare you to become what I call the energetic container to hold the desires that are placed in your heart. And what most people think is that when you become that energetic container, it's supposed to feel beautiful and expansive and wonderful. In my experience, it hasn't always been that way. And so when you start to really tap into manifestation wisdom on the depths of the wisdom that I know it to be, you start to realize that you are going to have to overcome some really big challenges to hold the bigger desires that you have. And this is why the manifestation that I teach is not just about, again, manifesting things in isolation, the car, the home, whatever it is. It really is looking at things holistically. Because when you look at things holistically, you start to become a different version of yourself. And manifestation really is about the be, do, have principle. Most people say, well, once I have the car or once I have the job, then I will show up in a different way and, be happy. But actually, you have to be the abundance first. You have to be the nurturing mother first. You have to be all of those things first before it materializes in your reality. And so part of this huge identity crumbling that I had during my first pregnancy was thinking about all of these different concepts of who I was going to be, because I'd become really proud of the version that I'd built myself up to. And now I was like, well, what next? And because I knew I was becoming a mom, all of those concepts started to change me on an internal level, and those results started to pour out into my external world. And so there were a lot of ego deaths that I had along the way, and I've never spoken about this in a public sort of platform before, so I am delighted to be sharing with you. Essentially, I had been somebody that had built a company to six figures in the first full year doing business full time. And I was really, really proud of that. And I'd overcome so many different money obstacles in my own mind and abundance issues. And, so much. I'd healed my money story so much that I thought I had it waxed. I didn't. Little naive me really needed to go on a deep journey with money. And I feel like this has been one of the biggest journeys that the last 4 years have really taught me, is my journey with abundance. And so the biggest ego death I had in the lead up to me giving birth was I was €9 short on my rent, or my portion of the rent for the month. And that completely destroyed me because it shattered the illusion of who I thought I was. And I even remember in that moment of sobbing on the floor, and, I really felt it. And I don't know if it was because of the pregnancy hormones, but I don't believe that pregnancy brings about, it doesn't amplify emotions that weren't already there. So it just amplifies what you're already feeling. And so I remember in that moment of sobbing my eyes out on the floor and just like searching for some sort of connection to God's whole spirit. I had no idea what I was praying to at that point, but I just remember going, I know that this is happening for me, even though this is one of the hardest things I've had to go through. And it was just an incredibly eye-opening experience for me. Now, of course, Lloyd, my husband, was able to cover that portion of the rent, and it wasn't like we were going to be homeless, but it shattered my ego. And there have been many, many more ego deaths since that moment, but that was the first of many to come. And that completely made me lose confidence in my ability to manifest, in my ability to practice what I preach, in my ability to do a lot of different things. And so, with me losing confidence, with me feeling so disconnected from my body, I started to also feel very disconnected from God's source universe. And that's why pregnancy for me was such an interesting journey, because I felt so disconnected to my intuition. And intuition lives in the body. And my body was obviously going through massive changes by growing another little human. And so it makes sense to me why I was so disconnected from my intuition. That was a really strange and interesting period for me, because I am somebody that is so connected to my body based wisdom. I am somebody that is so connected to God's whole universe. And so to have like voids or darkness or spots where I couldn't connect was incredibly frustrating for me. And I even remember I'd been in labor for well over 24 hours at a point, and I was needing to start making really big decisions, and I had no connection to my intuition. And again, that was a part of me that was like, am I meant to be doing the work that I know in my heart of hearts and soul of souls that I'm here to be doing? But right now, everything has started to feel like it's crumbling around me. And I really do believe that the bigger your mission, the bigger the impact that you are here to make, the greater you have to become an energetic container. And so the universe really is going to stretch and expand you a lot of the time to be able to become that energetic container. And so if you're manifesting something right now and you feel like the more action you're taking, the further away you're getting from it. It could be for a multitude of different reasons, but what if the universe is just cracking you open to become that energetic container? And when you look at it through that lens, you realize just how everything really is happening for you. And I know that that information can also be super infuriating to people, because you want it to be easy. You want manifestation to be the magic one that fixes everything for you. But manifestation is going to bring you a life that far exceeds your expectations. This is where I believe manifestation and goal setting differ. Goal setting is looking at your current set of circumstances, going, well, this is the amount I earn every year. This is my situation. This is how much the home is that I want to purchase, for example. This is how much I can save. That is goal setting. That requires willpower, which we actually have a limited resource to. That requires like consistency and structure and discipline. And I'm not saying that those things are bad. I'm just saying that that works on your current set of circumstances. What manifestation does, it opens up the door to infinite possibilities of, I want this home. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I'm going to trust and take action that is different to what I've already been doing. And when you're taking action that's different to what you've already been doing, that is when you get met with so much discomfort. That is when you're like, oh, I have fear here. I don't like doing this. And that's when we often confuse, well, manifestation should be this process of feeling really good. It's not. It's going to feel really deeply uncomfortable. And so feeling high vibe about your manifestations all the time is not always possible, because manifestation really is going to expand you in the most unthinkable of ways. It's going to deeply crack you open so that you can hold it all. And this is what I was learning 4 years ago, and actually 3 years ago now, because my son's about to turn 3, which also again blows my mind, that I was learning all of these lessons 3 years ago. So that was the start of the crumbling. And I had a very, I don't want to say very, but a traumatic birth with Liam. And it obviously took a couple of months to heal from, because my body was so shattered. But there was one thing that I will never forget feeling, which was the moment my eyes would lock with his. I wanted to give this little soul my everything. It was the most surreal feeling, and I can still picture his little eyes looking up at me when I was breastfeeding him, and just going, I want to give this child the world. And I don't know of many mothers that don't get that feeling, right? And so I started to understand the concept of wanting to give all and everything of yourself to this baby I was physically just still healing, and I wasn't ready to go back into work. I wasn't ready because I thought that I would take 6 weeks off and go straight back into coaching, open up my one-on-one spaces, and just hit the ground running again. But what I was fast learning is that I could never go back to doing business the way I used to do it. And that is when everything that has now come of this to today, and even like in the last few weeks or months, I would say, has been a result of that moment starting back then. Yeah, so that was the start of everything cracking open. Now, again, going back to, I know in my soul that I'm designed to be a millionaire in this lifetime. I had to learn how to become a really good receiver. I wasn't earning much income at the time that Liam was born. I still had bills to pay. I still had members that were part of my team at that point that I very sadly had to let go of. And there was like a lot starting to change. But in that time, we were still able to manifest going from a 1-bed to a 2-bedroom, beautiful apartment, the apartment that we're in today. And how the universe also laid all of those steps out still to this day blows my mind, because on paper it looked like we were living in a really terrible situation because our washing machine had gone. And if you know how much clothing you are required for a newborn, you will know that a washing machine is actually a necessity. And it was November, and that is when we're going into winter in Dublin. And the only way they were going to be able to fix this washing machine, because it was also the dishwasher, it was eventually the whole plumbing, was going to be by digging up the building, the basement apartment that we were in, to fix it all. We have a newborn. It is almost the middle of winter. It is freezing cold. We don't have access to a washing machine. We're in a 1-bedroom apartment. We have family staying with us. Also, again, adding to the clothes load. And on paper, this would have looked like the worst situation ever. And I even remember saying to Lloyd, what if this is the universe putting everything in our pathway for us to get a new place? And it did. It was exactly that. Because we had such a crazy situation that we were living in, our landlord was like, please, if you find something, you can go tomorrow. And she felt so bad about the situation because we had this new little baby that we got let out of our lease agreement early with no questions asked. We got a place where we got it because we were able to move in immediately, and the apartment block that we got was highly sought after, and there is a massive housing crisis in Dublin. And so for us to get what we wanted very quickly, also unheard of. And so everything just happened so beautifully for us. And this was in a time where I wasn't earning the income that I would have liked to have been earning, and I had to learn how to receive from others and know that it was still a joint manifestation. And that, I know, for a lot of moms can be a really difficult place to be in, because if you are a mom, especially if you're a stay-at-home mom or you're on maternity and maybe you are an entrepreneur, you are probably, if you're listening to this, a highly ambitious mama. And because you like to make sure that you can do things yourself, not being able to do everything that you used to in terms of bringing in abundance can feel like a really hard place to be in. And so I had to learn how to receive and open myself up to receiving, through another. And it was really beautiful for me to learn those lessons. That was part of the first little bit of our experience in Dublin, and how Mind Your Hero had already started to take shape in a different way. So by the January 2023, I had my baby. I was 3 months postpartum, and I was ready to go back into work. And I changed things here and there, but essentially I was able to repurpose all of the things that I built up until this point. And I managed to very successfully launch a full years long membership and start working on projects in the back end. Now, there was still a lot that I was navigating. I was navigating like being a mom and figuring things out and nap schedules and all of these different things. Luckily, Liam was a really great sleeper, so I didn't have those challenges, but it was still a lot to navigate. And I soon started to realize that, again, the way I used to do business is not the way that would be sustainable going forward. And so it was probably a year where I was reconsidering what business would look like. It was the start of things collapsing. And it was also the year that around 9 months postpartum, I was like, oh, I'm starting to feel myself again. I was starting to get back into exercise. I was starting to get into a rhythm and a routine. And it was also the time that the July was when we had manifested Taylor Swift tickets. Now, this is an important part of the story, right? I am a huge 50. For those that have been a part of my journey for the biggest time, Taylor Swift is a very important part of my life. And so we had manifested going to go and see her live in 2024. And this is also around the time where we had already started considering having a second, and we always knew that we would want two very close together. And so we had set an intention of like, whatever happened would happen. But I knew that I wouldn't want my baby to be younger than 6 weeks old. And I wouldn't want to be like in my third or first trimester pregnant at her concert. In fact, I just wanted to not be pregnant at all because I wanted to really have fun. And my first pregnancy, I really battled with pubic symphysis pain and pelvic girdle pain and all of the different things. So I wanted to make sure that I could stand at a concert for 3.5 hours and jam along to my favorite artist of all time, bucket list moment for me. And then the craziest thing happened. There was one last gap of opportunity. And I remember saying to the future soul, and I will do another podcast episode on how I manifested my second pregnancy because it is a really beautiful story. But I remember having a conversation with my future soul saying, today is the last day. If you don't arrive today, then the gates are closed until this date, and that's okay. But today's the last day. I did fall pregnant on that last day. And what blows my mind is that when I look back at my ovulation cycles and all of that, I had a 1% chance of falling pregnant on that day. 1% chance. And we fell pregnant. And so I just know that soul was so ready to come earthside. And so I just started getting my pink back and another disruption cycle planned, but the dark thoughts came back. I had migraines and headaches, and I was exhausted and trying to look after a toddler. And it was, again, quite a tumultuous time in my life because I was handling all of these different things. I was trying to figure out how to bring up a toddler. Nap schedules were changing once again. Business was unfolding. And Lloyd had also gotten a new job that was a really hectic job. And by the February, he had worked a crazy, crazy amount of hours. I'd basically been solo parenting. I was almost burnt out, and things were just not being able to like really take off in my business because it was just chaos. It was absolute chaos. And living abroad, as amazing as it can be, there are also times where you really wish that family was close by just to have like a grandparent hour. There are not often where Lloyd and I are without our kids, and we are always with our babies, and it's something that we've chosen and we're totally okay with that. But there are times where it can be really challenging because you don't necessarily have that support system that you would have back home. And that was part of February 2024 being one of the craziest months of our lives. We got through it, and everything that we've also had to endure over the last little while, we've become such a solid team in how we have managed to really navigate a lot of life's challenges. So yeah, this was all a whirlwind of a time. Shortly after that, I remember joining a challenge from one of the top industry leaders, Shoshana Raven, and it was Money March. And that challenge changed so much for me because it reignited a spark in me. It reinvited something inside of me. And I decided that I needed to niche down in Mind Your Hero. And so I decided to focus on just entrepreneurs, really use all the wisdom and the magic that I learned over the last while to help people build their business in alignment with manifestation techniques and human design. And that's what I had started to really focus on. I had also burned down my previous Instagram accounts, which is now back, which we can get into the semantics of that, and started afresh. And it was just, there was so many parts of me craving a fresh start. And that fresh start, was a repeating pattern. It kept coming back. It kept coming back. Like, I just want this fresh start. I just want this fresh start. And I do believe that digital spaces hold energy, that they hold frequency. And that's something that is pretty interesting to even consider. And something that I'd noticed is that when I went onto previous Instagram accounts, because I was juggling a few, I would feel a very specific way. And that was really interesting because when you feel a certain way, you're going to manifest a certain result. And it all boils down to, well, who are you being when you're showing up in that vortex, in that container, in that way? So that was something that was really interesting that I just started to notice. And so Jordan was born a couple of months later in the May. And I had started really being consistent in content. And I was really proud of myself for finding the passion again in the work that I was doing. However, things again got turned upside down. I was 3.5 weeks postpartum with this new little baby who I was just enjoying so much. Being a mom for a second time is really special because the identity crisis that comes with becoming a mom the first time doesn't happen the second time. The second time around, you do go through a massive change, but it's not becoming a mom again because you already know how to be a mom. And so there were moments where I would just sit and soak in the newborn snuggles and not worry about how to change a nappy because I already knew how to do those things. And it was such a special, special, special time for me with Jordan. But again, business wasn't thriving. And I remember at one point being really stressed about business, and Lloyd had said to me, well, you can always just get a job. Now, the way he had said it, the way I'd interpreted it, what he had actually meant was very lost in translation, and it caused a bit of another ego death, a massive moment of crisis, because essentially what I heard was he didn't believe in me or my business and that I should find a job. And I was like, well, what the hell am I supposed to do when I've got a 1.5-year-old and a 3.5-week-old? And so I decided to get really serious about business. And that was a really beautiful moment because it was the moment that led to the fall down of everything that allowed me to really find my center yet again. So once I decided to take business really seriously, that was when I launched the challenge that I had for myself of creating $100,000 in 365 days. I'm a person with a defined goal center that if you tell me what to do, I'm going to rebel against that. It is by design. I have no way of helping this intense competitiveness in me. And it is a shadow that I'm fully aware of. But it's like, if you tell me that I can't do something, I'm going to prove you wrong by doing it. And that's the kind of feeling that was driving this part of me of I can show the world that I can do anything while raising two under two. And I became a version of myself that I look back and it wasn't a version that I loved. It was not a version that I loved. I am so grateful to that version though, because she got me to where I am today. And so I do not harbor any negative thoughts against her. But it was a version that was filled with a lot of pushing, forcing, and hustling energy. And this is very true for a lot of generators, is that because we know that we can gain energy from doing the work that we love to do, we will then be going, well, if I want a certain results, then I can control my output of efforts in order to get to where I want to go. And so I'd started to restructure everything in my business. And this is also the point where AI started to really come into play. And what really frustrated me is that I started to sound like every second person on the internet. And I was so bored of it. I was so bored and I had lost my authenticity. I had lost what I stood for. And it was because I had no capacity to be creative. Raising two under two, that first year was, honest to God, the hardest year of my life. It was filled with so much magic and special moments, but it was the hardest year. Jordan we had rushed him to hospital in the ambulance one day because he had broken out into bad rashes. And that started a whole journey of discovering that he had a load of different allergies. And he had also gotten already sick with chickenpox. We had all gotten hand, foot, and mouth that year. We had all been completely wiped out in December. And it was a year of a lot of changes happening. Now, looking at this through the lens of human design and all of the knowledge that I have gained over the last little while is that it was working toward me ending a 7-year cycle. And a 7-year period is where a lot of your cells will regenerate themselves and let go of past trauma and really let go of those past patterns because it is a regeneration year. And when I was sick, I could feel parts of my throat because it was always in my throat. So I'd lost my voice. And that was also really frustrating to me because, again, like I said in the very beginning of this podcast, my voice is my frequency. And my frequency is what people really feel from me. And I'd lost that. And a lot of the stuff that I was doing in my membership at the time relied on me doing voice notes. And it was really such a frustrating time because I had no access to my voice and I was losing access to my intuition. And it was a part of my life where I feel like my senses were stripped from me because I couldn't smell, I couldn't taste, I couldn't voice myself, I couldn't, all of these things were foggy. And I truly believe that everything was shutting down around me so that I had to go within and face my inner demons. And this is where I truly believe the dark night of the soul started to amplify. And the dark night of the soul is where you really assess the depths of who you are and strip back the layers of every part of you that you thought you had to be or that you perceived yourself to be in a certain way. And you find the truth of who you are. And so with all my senses cut out, with me really going back within myself, I took some time to sit there, to deeply consider what I wanted business to be. And I was running a mastermind at the time, and it was a really successful mastermind. It was beautiful. The women that were in that group were second to none. It was an amazing group of human beings that I got to work with every single day. But again, there was this nagging sense of you can't keep doing business the way you've always done it. Something's got to change. And so by January this year, so we're not that far into the future now, by January this year, I had gotten to probably one of the worst places in business that I'd ever been. And there was, again, a sense of this repeating pattern of just as I start building things up, the carpet gets ripped out from underneath me. And I question, I always question patterns because I believe that patterns are not by coincidence. I believe that they are there to illuminate and to heal things within you and to call parts of yourself that you haven't deeply considered to come out so that they can be released, that they can be transmuted. And so I spent the last little bit the first little bit of the year starting to deeply consider, what is it that I'm meant to be doing? Because I've now tried the business route. I've now tried all these different things and it's just not landing. By February, things were getting really bad. I had started getting anxiety attacks. I had really started to think outside the box and it was really feeling very, very intense. And I could feel that I wasn't being a present parent. And that is something that I, again, had built up this whole existence of being an entrepreneur so that I could spend time with my babies. That was the whole purpose of me being in business, is that I could be a mom and a business owner, earn money. And I felt like I was failing on all fronts. So February this year was a really, really challenging time. And then we went back to South Africa. And that was when it all just started to properly crumble. I believe that different places hold different energies. And I believe that me going back to where I still had a lot of open leaks was the reason why I was able to assess all the blind spots that I did have and close out certain energy leaks that I still had, siphoning out abundance and energy and time and so many different things. And so that looked like closing out different bank accounts. It looked like closing down the South African side of the business because I knew that it was just a thing that was costing money and I wasn't making anything in the South African company to cover the expenses, and the expenses were pretty wild. And so I had to start the process of closing down, sorting out the tax, doing all of these different things. And slowly but surely, as I started to really start to resolve all of these different things, and I'd also gotten to a point where my expenses had outgrown my income and I needed to shut down certain software, which was actually a blessing in disguise because as much as I loved Carter for the many years that I used it, it had also become such a sore point because the emails wouldn't work correctly and things weren't working. And I was like, I'm paying so much for the software every single month for it to not actually, one, yield the results that I needed it to, and B, it's not working correctly. And so it was such a bugbear. And I remember it was so funny, every May, I would always go down this rabbit hole of trying to find a new platform for everything to be housed on. And I would spend weeks researching everything, only to be like, it's such an effort to close down Kartra that we're not going to do this right now because it would take me so long to do. And so that's what I spent a lot of my time in South Africa doing, downloading all of my content from programs that had, I honestly think that my old signature program, Unleash Your Hero, eventually became like a 50-page document. There were over 100 different videos, the amount of meditations and mind food guides and everything in that program. I still actually, when I look back, I was like, I gave this program my all. Like looking back, I was filled with so much pride because I'd given everything my all. And when I was in South Africa, it was so funny. I had an interview with a coach and a mentor that I had just worked with to help me like with my business. And we jumped on the podcast episode. It was Lauren of Love. You may know her. She's quite a big name in the industry. And she's like, I didn't know that she was recording the podcast at the time, and you can go and find this episode. But she's like, how's business going? I'm like, it's so interesting that you asked me this question today. I've literally just decided to close everything down and I have no idea what I'm going to do next. And she's like, I'm so excited for you because you're about to have the biggest quantum leap of your life. And I knew that logically, but in my body, I was just feeling so shattered. Like everything was splitting into 1,000 pieces. And it was just such an interesting time because every little step that I was taking to shut something down, to sort something out, to do all of these different things, I would feel a little bit lighter. But there was also a part of me grieving. There was a part of me grieving what I thought would be my $1,000,000 brand. I really thought that Mind Your Hero was going to be my all and everything for the rest of my life. And I had to grieve that brand. I had to grieve all of the different iterations. But I also knew in my heart of hearts that that name could no longer come forward with me. And part of the reason, there were many reasons, but one of the reasons was because I started diving so deeply into masculine and feminine energetics. And I truly believe that that is the gift that has helped me deepen my relationship with my husband. It is part of the gift that has really helped me understand how to parent my sons. And it's the real gift on how I've learned how to work with abundance in the way that I now do. And because of that, I also started to not resonate with the word hero anymore because being a hero is actually part of my shadow. Isn't that interesting? Being the hero that believes that she can fix everybody, or not even fix everybody, but being a hero is somebody that gets put on a pedestal. And it's such an interesting concept because I always started Mind Your Hero with the belief that she needed a hero, so that's what she became. But it just eventually started to feel very cutesy, very old Kylie, and I love that era for her. I really do. It was such an amazing era, but there was so much mature wisdom. There was a deeper level of embodiment. And I truly believe that where I am now is that I understand manifestation from the darkness to the light, not just the light side of manifestation. And that is a journey that I really embody and take my clients on. And when my clients come to me, they generally come to me in a time where they know they are ready to be cracked open because they are willing to bring in so much more. And so I'm not going to just tape over an affirmation as a plaster, going, just say this affirmation. That's how abundance will find you. I go to the depths of exploring what your old behaviors are, what your old patterns are, where the shadows lie, all of these different things. And so the word hero and mind your hero just simply did not resonate any longer. And I knew that I loved my membership because it was a part of me that could creatively express myself. And that was the only thing I decided to keep hold of. I changed the name to the Manifestation Collective. And I even said to Lloyd, like, in the many times that I was having moments of sobbing my eyes out, of, wanting to vomit because that is how much anxiety I had during this time, I said to him, I was like, I just need a break. I have loved what I've created and built. And even when I was in hospital doing work, it didn't feel like work because it felt like it was part of my soul expressing itself. But I just need a break. I need to be able to take a couple of steps back to reassess life. And who knows, maybe I'll go into photography again, or maybe I'll do this. And I was in the midst of sorting out different finances. So I knew that I'd have different financial options available to me. And past me thanks me so much for all of those different financial things that I put into place. But I really just started to open up myself to all the different possibilities that were in front of me. And so I came back to Dublin after being in South Africa for a good 3 weeks, celebrating Jordan's first birthday, which was such a big milestone because since he turned 1, everything, literally everything, started to become easier. The boys were able to be a little bit more autonomous. We also landed back, and the very following day, Liam started school. And that for me was the biggest game changer. It has helped our entire family thrive. Thrive. He is happy. I'm delighted. I get to spend more one-on-one time with Jordan. Jordan then thrives because he has the one-on-one time. Lloyd comes home. I'm not so depleted. I'm able to give more to him. So Liam starting school was the biggest game changer. And in that first week of him starting school, I took a week off of life. And this is what changed the game for me. I said to myself, I don't know what business is going to look like. I don't know what anything's going to look like. I'd shut down all of the subscriptions that I had. I'd shut down everything that I'd worked on. I had literally trimmed everything back to the bare bones of what I needed to survive. I'd stripped everything back to the bare bones, the absolute bare basic bones. And I said to myself, this is a week where I'm not allowed to think about business. It's a week where I get to do everything, where there's no rush, there's no time pressure, there's nothing. I just get to enjoy life. Liam had started school on the Thursday. Friday was Jordan's actual first birthday. And from that Friday till the very next Friday, I said to myself, so it was just over a week, I'm not allowed to think about business. Now, before going into this commitment with myself, I did have a couple of things at play. I was considering going back into starting a photography business, which I had one prior. I had also considered going back into architecture. I had considered applying for social media jobs. I had considered many different things, many, many, many different things. And there was still this nagging sense that if I gave up on the manifestation world, if I gave up on all of this stuff, it would be the biggest regret of my life. And so I knew that I needed to take myself out of the thinking environment that had led me to getting into this place, because the same mind that created the problem can't resolve it. And I also know that because I didn't have capacity to think, because I didn't have capacity to tap into creative flow, because there were so many sleepless nights, there was I always had kids around me, and I was starting my day like really late at night, and I was just absolutely shattered. And when you are shattered, your creativity can't come into play because your nervous system is in a state of fight and fight. And when you are fight and flighting your way through life, you can't find different solutions to the problems that you have in front of you. And so when you can only see the problem that you have in front of you, that's when you blame or complain and you project onto others. And then you start punishing other people because of the situation that you're currently in. But it's because you have no capacity to actually get out of your mind and into your body. And so this was my week that I gave to myself. I did breath work every day. I went, and it was such a beautiful weather week as well in Dublin that we were on the beach every day. We were in parks, and I remember going to mum meetups. And generally in the past, I would have gone for an hour and then be like, I have to go work. I have to go do this. And I was always rushing. And this was a week that I was like, I've got no plans. I can do this. And I said yes to everything. I stayed for longer. I met new people. I had great conversations. And by Thursday, I was like, I'm itching to get back to work. I'm itching to do what I love to do. I'm itching to get back into it. And that's when I knew in my heart of hearts that this was my path, because even taking time to just step away from it, my soul kept calling me back. And if you are in a situation where you are feeling burned out or stuck in life, if you can just take a week off of life, and it's not to say that you take life off or you forget about your responsibilities. I obviously still had my two babies to look after. I still had dinners to cook. I had Liam to get to school. I had new things that I had to do with the routine of getting him to school. I had a lot of different responsibilities that I was still holding, and I was still living everyday life. I just took a week off of what is it that I need to be doing. And that week saved everything for me, everything. And slowly but surely, it started to like land back in of, you're not meant to be doing the business coaching. You're not meant to be doing this. You're just meant to be doing what your zone of genius is. And my zone of genius is really just helping women rediscover themselves. And I feel like that is something that I'm now so embodied in, with all the different identity challenges and the growth and the different things that I've overcome over the last couple of years. And if I just go back to basics, what would that look like? And that's what I did. And slowly but surely, I started to, there's the concept of flamingos lose their pink after they give birth because their babies take so much from them. And it takes them around 2 years to regain their pink. And I slowly but surely started to find my pink again. It was also the first time I'd reached getting to a year postpartum, because with Liam, I only got to just over 9 months and I was pregnant again. And so I started to feel a little bit more myself. My hormones had started to regulate. I'd also been on a health journey and had released so many layers that I was carrying that wasn't just weight from food sources, it was also emotional. It was so many different things. And so I really started to just come back home to me and feel more myself. And from that place of being able to tap into creativity and take a morning off where I got to do breath work. And when I say breath work, not just like a quick little 10-minute session, like an hour and a half long breath work session. It was divine. It was so luxurious. And there were certain phenomena that started to happen, which were really big signs for me. So I have a very special relationship with my gran who has passed. She passed a long time ago. But at very important moments in my life, she has always come through in a spiritual form. And she came through in that week for me. And she gave me deeper gifts. And I still to this day don't know exactly what they hold. But this is part of the journey that I'm now on, is to just remember who I am. And so I stopped following the mainstream coaches. I stopped following what I should be posting on Instagram. I stopped checking into the noise and started to listen to the guidance from within. And everything started to shift and change. And I've met so many incredible people. I have put myself out there. I've taken very uncomfortable decisions, and things have just all fallen into place. The momentum is gaining, and I no longer feel like I'm in a rush. And that has been the biggest gift to myself, is that how can I build things sustainably for the future as opposed to just having quick wins? And if you're in a business, you will know the value of looking at things long term. And I know that as an entrepreneur, if you are an entrepreneur, often we'll be worrying about cash flow. And if we don't have monthly recurring revenue, you will seek to have cash injections in your business. And that can come from a very desperate energy. So, really diving into how I could create sustainable monthly recurring revenue in a way that was very sustainable, where I didn't have to rush the process, was my biggest goal. That has officially all come together so beautifully in divine timing. It's also there have just been so many synchronicities for me to get to this point. And so when I had it on my heart to relaunch this podcast, I knew that it wasn't going to just be about surface level things and manifestation. It was going to go to the depths of these conversations. And I feel like I've already got about 15 different episode ideas on this conversation alone, because I could go into really talking about what it means to have an ego death, what it means to have a dark night of the soul, or the different signs and symbols and what it means to see the different numbers, and how you do work with spirit guides, and when you do take inspired action, and what the discernment is. Because I think the biggest edge that I've learned to walk on this year is the edge between how do you take inspired action without falling into hustle, force, and push? How do you trust in the timing of everything without falling into like taking your foot off the gas pedal too much? And how do the discernment of everything? How do you know when to to course correct, or how do you know that that might be giving up before reaching gold? And as a generator, I know that one of the toxic traits of generators is that we do give up too quickly. We give up when we get frustrated. We give up when things get hard. So it's knowing, when do you give up on something that you thought was correct, and when do you trust that a new path is availing itself to you? And I do firmly in my heart know that I've cracked some of the codes to that. And that is thanks to the help of human design. Because I'm so aware of how my design operates, because I know how to make decisions with my authority, because I know how to use my being a generator in this to bring in certain signs and synchronicities and things for me to respond to, I've really learned how to work with the breadcrumbs of the universe, because the universe will always give us breadcrumbs. It's how we react to those breadcrumbs and follow the breadcrumbs that make all the difference. And so this is where I am today. This is my story over the last 4 years of how we've gotten from being a really recognizable brand, especially within South Africa, of being Mind Your Hero, to completely releasing everything, getting rid of old identities, understanding how to create new habits and belief systems, and wiring things deeper into my nervous system to take different action, to becoming that manifestation mama. And this is a space where I want to deeply explore manifestation, human design, and motherhood, because motherhood is the wildest ride. I thought entrepreneurship was, a wild ride, but motherhood has taught me so many different things about manifestation, about learning how to regulate my nervous system, about the frequency, because your children won't mirror back to you your actions. They'll mirror back to you the frequency that you're predominantly living in. And so it's really been interesting to have these two little mirrors walking around all the time, showing me what still needs to heal, what still needs to be let go of. And the thing that I've been diving so deeply into over the last few months is shadow work. Shadow work has deeply been unveiling the habits that weren't serving me. It's deeply been showing me where my blind spots were in my belief system. It's deeply been illuminating all of these different things. And again, another separate episode that I will do is showing you how you can use your human design and your gene keys to pinpoint what your shadows are. And I know for me, it always goes back to weakness is the first shadow that I'll experience on my pathway. And weakness looks like comparing myself to people. It looks like feeling belittled, or people are being condescending. And whenever those things come up, I know that there's a deep layer that we get to go to. And just having that awareness, again, has been a game changer, because what would have been a pattern and a repeating pattern for maybe even years now gets to the time frame on that shortens so dramatically that I'm sometimes able to unlock a shadow and discover it and have the awareness and transmute it and sometimes seconds. Not always, but sometimes. And that has been the thing that has really, yeah, it's really unlocked just such beautiful wisdom for me. And I'm excited to be bringing more of that into the space. So, welcome. If you have loved this episode, if there have been parts that have resonated with you, if there have been parts where you're like, this has been me too, please let me know. I know that change is so hard to go through, not only for yourself, but you absolutely will be judged for it regardless, because when you are no longer the same version of yourself, people have a perception that they've built up around about who you are. And when that shatters, they sometimes have a dissonance about who you are, and that shows them inside themselves where they have dissonance within them too. And so when people are like, oh, but you've changed, it's not always, made from a place of like, oh, I'm celebrating your change. It's sometimes like, this is really scary. So I know that change is scary, not just for you, but for others as well. And I know that I have still got many iterations to go through, but this has been a very big life lesson. It's been a very big, ego death void. But truthfully, I'm currently in a version of myself that is the happiest I think I've ever been. And it doesn't mean to say that my life is void of challenge. My life still has many different challenges, but I've deeply learned how to trust in myself. I've deeply learned how to trust that everything is happening for me. I've deeply learned how to know that I can navigate any different situation because of all the things that I've had to navigate in the last little while. And because I have so much trust in myself, I know that I'll figure out any next step. And that has been the biggest gift that human design has given me. So if you, again, have loved this, please let me know, share it with a friend. And if you are looking for a really simple 7-day challenge where you can tap into all of the different things that I've gone through that is personalized to you, I've got the Harmony by Design challenge. And it's a really special challenge that I placed together that works in accordance to the way you are designed in your unique codes with your human design. And it goes into shadow work prompts. It goes into higher self concepts. It goes into manifestation wisdom without you having to understand it. They are just really simple prompts that you get to answer every single day that are going to illuminate these things. Because I know that if you've gotten to this part of the episode, you are meant here for greatness, for big things, not just what the 95% of people say they will do and then end up setting that as the same New Year's resolution every year. You are somebody different, and you feel like the round peg in the square hole often. And this is my gift to you, is that challenge. It's $11. The link is in the show notes. Thank you from honestly the bottom of my heart to yours. This has felt like a bit of a therapy session. It's felt like just me really bearing my soul to whoever wanted to witness it. And I'm just delighted to be back in the space to be podcasting again. And I've got really exciting things planned for this podcast. So stay tuned. We'll be launching an episode a week, and I cannot wait to speak to you again. Bye for now.